Ozempic, Wegovy. You've probably heard these names everywhere. From your friends, your group chat, the gym, maybe even your own family members. These are the drugs that are literally reshaping the human body on a global scale. And they're both made by one company, Novo Nordisk. And these aren't just diets in a pen or a pill. They're one of the most revolutionary breakthroughs in modern medicine. The front edge of what will become a trillion-dollar industry, right up there with the internet, cloud, and AI. Hundreds of millions of people could be on these medications within the next decade. So here's what we're doing today. 1. How you can actually profit from these revolutionary drugs. And 2. The paradox that nobody can explain. Why the company behind them just got cut in half when everyone is lining up for these products. Cut in half, while sitting at the dead center of what is the biggest health shift of our lifetime. The markets decided that the growth story is over, and I think it's one of the most obvious mistakes that investors are making right now. Last video, I talked about buying fear instead of facts, and this is a textbook case. A global leader just got cut in half, not because the business broke, but because the story got scary. So stick with me, because the real question isn't whether Novo wins the obesity market. It's whether that market gets so massive that several companies can win at once. So let's start with what's actually happening, because most people are missing the scale of it. For decades, obesity was being treated as a lifestyle choice, but now it's being treated for what it actually is, a chronic disease. And that one shift changes absolutely everything. Obesity rates are climbing in nearly every developed country. Governments are burning billions treating what comes with it: diabetes, kidney disease, heart disease, and a dozen other complications. And importantly, if a drug can cut those costs, adoption won't just grow, it explodes. And here's the part that should stop you. We're still incredibly early. Only a tiny fraction of eligible patients are on GLP-1s today, and demand is already outrunning supply. So real quick, are you on a GLP-1 or do you know someone who is? Feel free to drop a comment below. I want to see how far this is actually spread, and I think it's way more than people realize. So now, here is where Novo Nordisk gets interesting. Most people think that Novo is just Ozempic and Wegovy. It's not even close. Novo has spent decades building one of the strongest diabetes platforms on the entire planet. They understand obesity and they understand metabolic diseases better than almost anyone alive. And they spent decades building relationships with the doctors, hospitals, regulators, and insurers that control this entire market. And importantly, that kind of moat does not vanish the moment a competitor launches a slightly better drug. Manufacturing at a massive scale, distribution, commercial reach, one of the deepest platforms in the entire industry. That's why Novo became the leader in the first place, and that's why writing them off is just lazy. So you might naturally ask me, if the opportunity is this enormous, then why did the stock get crushed? So there's 3 reasons. First, Eli Lilly executed brilliantly. Zepbound showed stronger weight loss than Wegovy in many studies, and investors naturally thought that Eli Lilly would take the whole entire thing. Second, pricing pressure. Governments and insurers started pushing back on costs, and those sky-high margins were not going to last forever. Third, growth simply slowed after explosive acceleration, and the market simply hates deceleration even when a company is still growing fast. So when you stack those 3 together, you get a stock that gets cut in half. But here's where the crowd is getting it wrong. The market is treating it like it's a winner-take-all war. It isn't. This isn't Netflix killing Blockbuster, and it's not Google burying Yahoo. This market is just simply too big for one winner. For example, look at diabetes. Multiple companies make billions. Look at cancer. Multiple companies make billions. Obesity is going to look the exact same. Novo does not need to take 80% of the market. It just needs to stay one of the global leaders, and I think they can. So let's get into it. There are real catalysts that can re-accelerate growth. The biggest lane of growth is the oral GLP-1s. So Novo launched the Wegovy pill in the US in January of 2026, and the weekly prescriptions exceeded 200,000 by mid-April, with more than 2 million prescriptions already since launch. And as we can see here from their last earnings report, in the first 3 months, the Wegovy pill had reached more than 1 million people since the launch just in the US. Q1 sales reached nearly $2.26 billion, and in the Oasis 4 trial, patients who stayed on treatment lost nearly 16.6% of their entire body weight, while 34.4% also lost at least 20%. And in July, Wegovy also received European approval, making it the first GLP-1 that is available for use and treatment in both the US and the EU. The second is international expansion. Novo's 2025 sales nearly reached 82.35 billion Danish krones, and that's up nearly 31% year over year in constant currencies, while maintaining nearly 60% of the global branded GLP-1 obesity market. And international obesity sales grew nearly 44% in Q1 of 2026, with nearly 63% in both Europe and in Canada, and 87% in the Asia Pacific region. And third is the pipeline. CagriSema produced nearly 22.7% of average weight loss for patients that stayed on treatment. And for the insane part, nearly 40% of them lost at least 25% of their body weight. Novo is also advancing zenigamatide into phase 3 alongside higher dose Wegovy for additional indication. This is giving it several ways to improve efficacy and to extend growth beyond its existing product. So back to that promise from the beginning. How do you actually profit from this? That comes down to valuation. Because a few years ago, the market priced Novo like the growth would accelerate forever. Today, the market has swung to the opposite extreme, pricing in that competition has permanently destroyed growth and margins. And so the truth is actually somewhere in the middle. Now let's walk through the valuation. Novo is trading roughly at around $46 per share. And as you can see here, we use nearly 3 different approaches. So we used a discounted cash flow model, an EV to sales multiple, and an EV to EBITDA multiple. So together, these produced us an average price target of approximately $56 per share, which is roughly representing about 22% upside before including the nearly 4% dividend yield. Now, I want to be extremely clear here. This number might not look like a ton of upside because it's only 22%, but compounded with that 4% dividend yield, it's very, very attractive. And it's important to note that we used extremely conservative numbers, and the upside could be as high as $80 to $100. So starting with the DCF, as we can see, Novo generated nearly 12.8 billion in Danish krones in free cash flow during the first quarter, which was up roughly 13% year over year. So we assume that the free cash flow would reach approximately 51 billion Danish krones for the full year before actually gradually recovering toward a more normalized level of around 70 billion Danish krones over the medium term. And then from there, what we did was we used a medium-term growth rate, which was pretty conservative, of between 5 and 9%, and a 2.5% terminal growth rate, and then an 8% discount rate. So these assumptions, as you can see, gave us a DCF value of approximately $65 per share. And that is the most bullish of the 3 valuation methods, and one the market will really lean on over the near 3 to 5 year term, and then discount it back accordingly. But it also reflects the durability of demand for Novo's diabetes and obesity treatments. Now, the second approach here, as you can see, is the EV to sales. So Novo is expected to generate approximately nearly 292 billion in revenue of Danish krones, of course, over the next 12 months. And the stock currently trades at around 5 times forward sales, which is well below Eli Lilly at roughly 12.5 times, and even slightly below Johnson & Johnson at approximately 6 times. And so we're not assuming that Novo suddenly receives Lilly's premium valuation. We actually apply a very conservative 5.5 times multiple. And this would reflect kind of the lack of clear near-term catalysts for kind of a complete re-rating for Novo. And that very conservatively produces a valuation in the mid-50s per share, which would give you a very nice stable compounder in your portfolio. And then finally, we looked at an EV to EBITDA multiple. And so we estimated full year EBITDA of approximately 144 billion Danish krones. And so Novo currently trades at roughly 8 times forward EBITDA, which is actually below its 12-month average of around 10 times and dramatically below Eli Lilly's, which is approximately 24 times. So if you even apply a measured, say, 9.5 times multiple, it would give us a value of approximately $49 per share. And this is the most conservative outcome because it assumes only a modest recovery in investor sentiment. And so when we average these 3 approaches, we arrive at a very fair price target of approximately $56 per share, which from $46, like I said, represents about 22% appreciation, or roughly 26% total return when the dividend is included. And so important to note, it only requires the company to deliver reasonably well and for its valuation discount to narrow modestly. And so that is why we still view Novo as a very nice buy, and the expectations embedded in the stock are relatively low, while the underlying obesity market continues to expand rapidly. And investors are also being paid nearly a 4% dividend yield while waiting for the business and sentiment to recover. And that could definitely compound in the near future. So if you want the full valuation work on Novo, management, the bear, the base, the bull case, and all the numbers behind it, it's up on our Patreon, and the link will be in the description. But the main thesis is right here in this video. So let me be straight with you. Will Novo completely dominate obesity? Probably not. Will Lilly keep taking share modestly? Almost certainly. But great investing is not about finding companies with zero competition. It's about finding companies that can compound for years or even decades. Novo has spent nearly 30 years building one of the best metabolic disease franchises in the entire world. The obesity market is still in its infancy. And if management executes, there's room for more than one winner. That's why despite all the fear, all the downgrades, all the noise, Novo Nordisk is one of the most interesting healthcare companies that I'll be watching over the next decade. So as always, this isn't financial advice and it's important to do your own research. But if this changed how you see Novo, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments, are you bullish or bearish Novo from here?